The hour is near, closer than most realize. The day that approaches, April 8th, is not just a date on the calendar, and it's certainly not ordinary. It is a set time, marked by God Himself, and it carries weight in the Spirit. You may not see it with your eyes, but if you're listening, you've already felt it. Something is stirring in the heavens. There's a quiet trembling beneath the surface of everything, inside conversations, inside sleep, inside the air. Emotions feel heavier. Time feels strange. And the pressure you've been sensing lately? That's not stress. It's spiritual. The distractions have multiplied, confusion keeps rising, and yet through it all, the Spirit of God is calling His people to see, to focus, to prepare. This is not business as usual. It never was. And as Jesus warned, watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming. The voice of the Spirit is still speaking, let the one who has ears hear what the Spirit is saying. But the question is, who's really listening? If you've been feeling that shift, the tension, the unspoken urgency, I want you to know you're not alone. Let me know what you've been sensing in the comments below. And if you're walking this path of discernment and preparation too, subscribe to the channel, we'll go through this together. Because what's coming after April 8th will not leave things the same. April 8th is not a coincidence. It is not just another day marked by rare events or dramatic signs in the sky. It is part of something older, deeper, something prophetic. From the beginning of time, God has never moved without order. He has never acted in chaos. And He has never shifted the course of human history without first revealing what He was about to do. The closer we get to this moment, the clearer the pattern becomes. And if you've been paying attention, you've already seen it. Before the flood came, there was a warning. Noah didn't build the ark because he had a hunch. He built it because God gave him a word. A warning not just for his household, but for the entire generation. For years, the construction continued under silence. No rain. No evidence. Just obedience. And while the people laughed, while they lived as though nothing would change, Noah kept building. Then came the day when the sky broke open. And by the time judgment arrived, preparation was no longer possible. Those who had mocked couldn't build fast enough. The window had closed. God had spoken long before the flood came, but only a few responded. The Exodus followed the same pattern. Deliverance didn't come suddenly. It came through instruction. The lamb had to be chosen. The blood had to be applied. The meal had to be eaten in haste. And the people had to be ready to move at midnight. The ones who obeyed weren't just escaping slavery, they were aligning with the timing of heaven. And that alignment required consecration. It wasn't enough to want freedom. They had to be marked for it. When the angel passed through the land, it didn't look for good intentions. It looked for obedience. And before the resurrection, the greatest turning point in history, there was pressing. Jesus didn't go straight from miracle working to glory. He entered the garden. He wept. He groaned. He bled. He carried the weight of sin before the joy of salvation was ever seen. Even the Son of God submitted to the order of heaven, pressing before power, silence before revelation, suffering before resurrection. The empty tomb was not a surprise, it was the fulfillment of a process. So why would we expect God to move now in a way that's any different? He hasn't changed. He still speaks before He acts. He still warns before He shifts. He still calls His people to prepare before He releases the next wave of glory or judgment. And right now, April 8th is part of that divine rhythm. It's not an interruption, it's a continuation of how heaven has always moved through history. The weight many are feeling, the pressure rising in the spirit, the disruptions that seem to come out of nowhere, these are not signs of confusion. They are the announcement of alignment. As the scripture declares, surely the Lord God does nothing unless He reveals His secret to His servants the prophets, Amos 3 verse 7. This is not poetic language, its spiritual protocol. When God is about to move, he whispers first. He places it on the hearts of those who are listening, praying, watching. And though the world may call it strange or overly spiritual, the Spirit anchored know better. They recognize the signs because they've seen this pattern before. And as Ecclesiastes reminds us, to everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose under heaven, Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1. This isn't just a season of chaos. It's a set time. A kairos moment. And those who walk with discernment understand that when the season shifts, their posture must shift with it. We are not called to react in panic, but to respond in obedience. This moment, this April 8th, is not the beginning of something new. It's the unveiling of what's been building in the unseen. And as with every prophetic moment before it, there will be those who recognize the timing and move accordingly, and those who ignore the warnings and miss the window. Because the truth is, God doesn't wait for the world to be ready. He moves when the time is right. And when he does, those who are aligned will walk forward in purpose, while those who slept through the warning will wonder what just happened. This is not hype. It's not emotional noise. And it's not random. It's prophetic order. And we're standing right in the middle of it. April 8th is not just a date to notice, it is a moment that demands response. It is not a spectacle to observe from a distance, but a summons to come closer. This day carries a weight in the spirit that will not be handled lightly. It demands more than curiosity. It demands consecration. This is not a time for passive belief or surface-level spirituality. This is a time for separation, for holiness, readiness, and realignment with the heart of God. When God marks a moment in time, it's never about outward performance. He does not move according to appearance. He moves where there is surrender. And April 8th will not open doors for those who are merely watching. It will open for those who are aligned. To consecrate is to be set apart. Not just in words, but in action. It means to create distance between your soul and everything that pulls it out of rhythm with heaven. It means to stop living halfway. To stop giving God the leftovers. It means letting go, not just of sin, but of anything that dilutes your discernment. This is not just about avoiding evil. It's about refusing to be distracted. And in this hour, distraction has become one of the enemy's sharpest weapons. Consecration begins when we choose to lay aside the noise. The endless information, the scrolling, the performance, the pretending, all of it must be brought to silence. God isn't competing for our attention. He is calling for our devotion. And devotion can't survive in a heart that is split between too many voices. If we want to hear clearly, we must get quiet. If we want to move with heaven, we must step out of the noise. And then, the heart must be cleansed. Not just of outward actions, but of inner attachments. Bitterness, envy, pride, compromise, things we've learned to live with, but that heaven never approved. The Holy Spirit is not asking for perfection, but he is calling for purity. He is calling for integrity. For honesty. For a return to first love. And consecration means taking inventory of what's been sitting too long in the corners of your soul, and letting it go. Some ties must be cut. Some habits must be broken. Not because they are scandalous, but because they are in the way. Consecration is ruthless with the unnecessary. It does not excuse what dulls the spirit. It does not protect what God never planted. There are relationships, commitments, compromises that may have looked harmless in one season, but they cannot follow you into what's next. And if you know it, you must act on it. This is not a call to appearance. It's not about looking spiritual, performing better, or impressing others. This is a call to the altar. The place of surrender. The place where fire falls. The place where we stop negotiating with God and start saying yes. The altar has never been about public approval. It's always been about private surrender. And in this hour, God is calling his people back to that place, not just once, but again and again, until everything that doesn't belong has been burned away. It's time to return to the secret place. The place where your spirit is nourished. Where your discernment is sharpened. Where your strength is rebuilt, not by striving, but by staying near. The secret place is not glamorous, but it is essential. In a world that keeps demanding your attention, this is the only place that will give you clarity. Without it, you will not be able to tell what is true from what is noise. And on April 8th, that distinction will matter more than ever. Consecrate yourselves, Joshua told the people, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you, Joshua 3 verse 5. That wasn't just a poetic encouragement. It was a prerequisite. God was about to part the waters, but only those who had been purified would walk through. The wonder followed the consecration. The miracle followed the preparation. That pattern has never changed. The call is the same today. Be holy, for I am holy, 1 Peter 1 verse 16. Not holy in theory, but in practice. Not just in appearance, but in substance. The holiness God asks for is not sterile, it is alive. It is the posture of a soul that says, Lord, not my will, but yours be done. It is the life that's been yielded, not because it had to, but because it wants to. April 8th is not a doorway you can walk through casually. It is not a wave you can ride without posture. It is a spiritual line. A moment of wait. And only those who are set apart will be able to discern it for what it truly is. Consecration is not optional in this hour. It is the only way forward. As the day draws near, so does the warfare. The pressure isn't imaginary, and the tension you've been feeling isn't random. Something is happening in the unseen realm, and it's closer than it's ever been. You may have noticed it without being able to explain it: sudden fatigue, strange emotional weight, unnecessary conflicts flaring up out of nowhere, or a constant pull toward things that don't really matter. This is not coincidence. This is resistance. The enemy always fights hardest right before something breaks open. He isn't all-knowing, but he can sense movement. He can recognize spiritual activity when it increases. And the closer we get to divine alignment, the more determined he becomes to disrupt, delay, or derail. That's why, in the days leading up to moments of breakthrough, things often feel like they're falling apart. But what you're experiencing is not falling apart, it's friction. It's warfare. And it's proof that something sacred is being contested. Satan is not creative. He uses the same tactics, but he disguises them well. He rarely announces himself with obvious destruction. Instead, he cloaks himself in busyness. Suddenly, everything demands your time. The things that used to fit in your schedule no longer do. The margin you once had to pray, to rest, to discern, it's gone. And what replaced it? Distraction. Noise. Movement that goes nowhere. When that doesn't work, he moves to the next tactic: conflict. You'll notice tension rising in places that once felt stable, in friendships, marriages, work, ministry. Conversations turn sharp. Misunderstandings increase. Small things erupt into full-blown division. Why? Because Satan knows that nothing slows down your forward movement like relational chaos. He'll plant offense where there was unity. He'll twist tone, distort meaning, and convince you to fight people instead of fighting the spirit behind it. And then there's the emotional heaviness, that deep, undefined weight that hangs over you without explanation. You wake up tired. You feel a fog in your thoughts. It's not depression in the clinical sense. It's pressure in the spiritual one. It comes on fast and drains your motivation, numbs your focus, and clouds your discernment. It convinces you to pull back, to shrink, to delay. But make no mistake, this is warfare designed to wear you down right before your assignment comes into focus. Fear, confusion, and fatigue often show up just before a gate opens. The enemy knows he can't stop God's move, so he works to make you step back from it. He wants to make you question what you heard, second-guess what you felt, and lose sight of what you've been preparing for. Because if he can't destroy your calling, he'll try to distract you out of it. If he can't remove the door, he'll convince you to walk away before it opens. That's why the scriptures warn us, do not be unaware of the devil's schemes, 2 Corinthians 2 verse 11. The moment we stop treating spiritual resistance as real, we fall into passivity. And passivity is what the enemy needs to work uninterrupted. That's why Peter wrote, be sober-minded and alert. Your enemy the devil prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour, 1 Peter 5 verse 8. Not just someone weak, someone unaware. Someone distracted. Someone spiritually asleep. But here's the truth, if the battle has intensified, it means you're close. The enemy does not fight what isn't a threat. He doesn't waste resources on people going nowhere. He targets movement. He targets transition. He targets those who are on the edge of obedience, the edge of revelation, the edge of release. If you're feeling pressure now more than ever, don't let it push you out. Let it confirm that you're on the right path. The closer you get to breakthrough, the louder the storm becomes. That's not poetic. That's reality. Ask Joseph, who was thrown into prison right before the palace. Ask Moses, who was rejected by his people before he was sent back to lead them out. Ask Jesus, who sweat blood in the garden before he stood up and faced the cross. The storm doesn't mean you're off course. It means the enemy sees what's coming, and he's terrified of you getting there. So don't shrink. Don't break. And above all, don't retreat. Recognize the fight for what it is. This is not personal. It's spiritual. And you've been given the weapons to endure it. The battle has intensified, because the moment is near. God doesn't just move, he speaks first. That is his pattern. That is his order. He doesn't act in silence. He gives instruction. And to those who are listening, the instruction is always clear, even if it doesn't always make sense. Long before the breakthrough is seen, the word has already been released. And for those who are walking in step with the Spirit, April 8th won't just be a sign in the sky, it will be a moment of personal clarity. Throughout Scripture, every divine shift was preceded by a divine command. Noah didn't build the ark because he wanted to. He built it because God spoke. His obedience looked ridiculous for years, but the instructions weren't optional, they were prophetic protection. When the flood came, survival belonged to the one who followed the voice. When Israel was about to leave Egypt, they weren't told to fight or to run. They were told to mark their doors with blood. To eat a specific meal. To prepare in stillness. Deliverance didn't begin with a dramatic display. It began with quiet, detailed obedience in the secret place. Those who listened lived. Those who ignored perished. When Joshua stood before the walls of Jericho, the instructions were even stranger. March. Be silent. Blow the trumpets. Not once did God call for logic, he called for alignment. The walls didn't fall because of military strategy. They fell because someone followed divine rhythm. And when Gideon went to battle, God reduced his army. He removed strength on purpose, until only the obedient remained. The victory wasn't in the numbers. It was in the surrender. Even the disciples, after witnessing the resurrection, were told not to act yet. Not to preach. Not to move. Just to wait. To sit still in the upper room until the power came. It wasn't a delay, it was precision. And when the Spirit fell, they were in position. This is how heaven works. Instruction first. Action second. And the ones who hear clearly are the ones who know how to respond when the moment arrives. April 8th will not be the same for everyone. For some, it will be a call to release, to finally let go of the things that have been draining, distracting, or delaying you. For others, it will be a call to speak, to say what you've been too afraid to say, to carry the word you've been holding in silence. Some will be sent, to go where others fear to move, to step out when it's uncomfortable. And still others will be asked to remain, to stand still and not run, even when everything inside them wants to move. The instruction may not be loud. It may not even be what you expect. But it will come. And when it does, the only question will be whether you are close enough to hear it, and surrendered enough to obey. As Jesus said, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me," John 10 verse 27. The ones who belong to him recognize the sound of his guidance. And as the book of Isaiah declares, "If you are willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land," Isaiah 1 verse 19. Not just those who are willing. Not just those who are aware. But those who are both willing and obedient. This is a moment that will separate those who are spiritually positioned from those who are spiritually distracted. When heaven speaks, the wise don't hesitate. They move, not with fear, but with faith. Because God is not calling for reaction. He is calling for response. And the ones who will walk through the doors that open on April 8th will not be the loudest, or the most visible, they will be the most aligned. April 8th is not just about revelation. It is about separation. It's not only a day of clarity, but a day of consequence. When God unveils, he doesn't do it for spectacle, he does it for decision. And when the veil lifts, not everyone will respond the same way. Some will rejoice. They will recognize what's being revealed because they've been waiting for it. Their spirits have been alert, their ears tuned to the whisper of heaven, their hearts prepared through surrender and consecration. For them, this unveiling will not feel like disruption, it will feel like confirmation. What was once unclear will make sudden sense. The confusion they've battled will break, and what God has been building in silence will finally come into the light. But others will tremble. Not because God is cruel, but because they ignored the signs. The warnings were there. The shift was stirring. The call to prepare was not hidden. But they dismissed it. Delayed it. Distracted themselves from it. And when the veil lifts, they'll see what they weren't ready to confront. What was hidden will become undeniable. And in that moment, the absence of preparation will feel heavier than the revelation itself. Because when God lifts the veil, he doesn't just expose information. He reveals reality. He brings things into view that have been operating in the dark. What is false falls apart. The narratives people use to protect themselves won't hold. The performances people clung to will crack. God is not just revealing what's been hidden, he is dismantling what's been false. And the shaking that follows won't come from judgment. It will come from truth. And truth demands a response. Light never enters a space passively. It confronts. It reveals. It calls. And it separates. As Jesus said, "For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light," Luke 8 verse 17. This unveiling isn't meant to shame, it's meant to awaken. But only the humble will receive it as mercy. The proud will see it as threat. This is why the unveiling will divide. Not because God chooses sides, but because people do. And the line will not be drawn by doctrine or denomination. It will be drawn by posture. By alignment. By obedience. Those who have chosen light will walk in it. Those who have resisted it will stumble when it appears. The same revelation that sets one person free may leave another exposed, because light not only reveals, it requires action. God's glory is not neutral. When it comes, it shifts everything around it. Isaiah 60 verse 1 declares, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you." But rising requires movement. It requires leaving behind what once felt safe. It demands change. And that's what April 8th will do, it will reveal who is willing to rise, and who would rather stay hidden. The unveiling is not symbolic. It is spiritual. And it will be deeply personal. The lines that once felt blurred will become painfully clear. The things you used to justify will no longer sit quietly in the background. The small compromises, the divided affections, the things you told yourself were fine, for now, all of it will be brought into focus. Not to destroy you, but to deliver you. But deliverance always begins with exposure. April 8th will be a dividing line, not by force, but by clarity. And once you see what's real, you cannot unsee it. What you do with that sight will determine what comes next. The struggle many have been feeling in this season is not punishment, it's preparation. The pressure isn't a sign that you're off course. It's confirmation that you're getting close. There's a pattern in the way God shapes those He calls. Before the release comes the resistance. Before the crown comes the crushing. And before the resurrection, there is always a cross. Look through the lives of those God used mightily, and you'll see it clearly. Joseph had the pit. He was thrown down before he was ever raised up. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit, not because he failed, but because he was destined for more than they could see. Moses had exile. A prince in Egypt turned fugitive in the desert. He spent 40 years in obscurity, not because God had forgotten him, but because God was forming him. The call didn't disappear in the wilderness. It deepened there. David had the wilderness too. Anointed in secret but hunted in public. Called to be king, yet running for his life. His throne didn't come after applause. It came after rejection, after hiding in caves, after learning to worship when no one was watching. And Jesus, he had Gethsemane. Before the stone rolled away, he wept alone. Before glory, there was blood. Before the resurrection, there was a cross. The pattern hasn't changed. What you're walking through right now may feel like resistance, but it's more than that, it's evidence. You're not being blocked. You're being prepared. Everything that's pressing against you is doing so because destiny is drawing near. The enemy doesn't attack what isn't a threat. He resists what's rising. James wrote, "The testing of your faith produces perseverance," James 1 verse 3. And Peter warned, "Do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal that has come on you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you," 1 Peter 4 verse 12. You're not cursed. You're being conditioned. And if you do not give up now, what has felt like fire will turn into fuel. This is why you must endure. Because April 8th is coming. And when it does, it won't just reveal, it will separate. Some will step into destiny. Others will miss it. Not because God chose one over the other, but because one chose obedience while the other stayed comfortable. The difference will not be talent. It will be alignment. It will be consecration. It will be the ones who said yes, when it was quiet, when it was hard, when it didn't make sense. So here is the final call. Lay aside the fear that's been whispering to you. It's a liar. Stand in the faith you've already been given. It's enough. Fast, because some things only break through sacrifice. Pray, because clarity comes in the presence. Listen, because God is still speaking. Obey, because obedience is what unlocks the next step. You were not born randomly. You were born for this moment. You were chosen for this hour. The pressure you felt isn't proof of God's absence, it's proof that the veil is thinning, the shift is near, and the timing is precise. As Romans 13 verse 11 reminds us, now is the time to awaken from your sleep, for your salvation is nearer now than when we first believed. This is not just another day on the calendar. It is a divine appointment. A moment that was marked before you were ever born. So may you be found ready. May you rise when the call comes. May you see clearly, and move with heaven. April 8th is coming. And when it does, the line will be drawn, the veil will be lifted, and those who are aligned will walk into everything they were created for.